You're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And with the increase in global advancement, or digital advancement, I beg your pardon, across the globe, Nigeria still has that gap when it comes to, digital advancement, and there has also continued to exist the rise of digital or lack of digital inclusion in Nigeria. But how then can we, together as a nation, bridge that gap and move on with the world, as the world is said to be, a fast-growing global digital village? Well, my guest, who is a tech content creator and an entrepreneur, Chukwuma Nwokeji, is here with me to have that conversation. Thank you for coming on Business Daily this morning.
Thank you.
And let's hear from you. How would you say Nigeria is faring currently, in terms of, I should say, digital inclusion and, generally when it comes to the tech space as a whole? Where do you say Nigeria stands in Africa and globally?
Okay, well, I'll say that our position, we are really trying, we are improving over the years. Smartphone penetration and internet penetration has actually been on the increase in Nigeria. But I feel we still need to do more. Just like last year, according to NCC, they said that about 57.84% of mobile subscription goes to 2G subscribers. That's to say many Nigerians are still making use of lower budget smartphones, the ones that don't really have access to the internet. And there are so many computer illiterates today, many people are finding it difficult to use smartphone in Nigeria. So I would say that we are still a bit more behind when it comes to digital adoption.
Okay, you have talked to, the majority of Nigerians still, using the 2G subscription. This is according to data from the National Communications Commission.
Yes.
However, from the point of view of the elites now, you would say that there has been some kind of improvement. I would say this because, you see the large influx of Nigerians on social media platforms and all of those. But then again, we forget that we have those, in areas, in rural areas that don't have access to these things. So how would you say we can, if I asked you, top 3 ways that we can easily bridge that gap? You talked about 2G penetration, and here we are already having access to 5G. But what would you say, how would you say we can easily bridge that gap in rural areas?
Okay, well, I think that of rural areas is very important. Take, for instance, if I travel to my village, I normally do most of my major work in the city before I travel, because I know that once I get to the village, I will not have access to good network. So I believe our network providers needs to get into some of the rural areas that don't have access to the internet first. Because imagine someone that don't have access to internet, and you are telling the person about internet, or maybe telling the person about smartphone. You can't preach such gospel to the person, because even if he has the gadget, he can't use it. Imagine I can't, once in my village, I'm using it as an instance, if I don't have cash, I can't buy any product, even with my ATM card. So I feel the network service providers, they need to get to different places in Nigeria, except for places maybe for security reasons, they don't have access to network. But there are places also that are very okay but network is not being accessible in those areas. And if we can have such a thing, then we can look for a way to subsidize smartphones and make sure that it gets to those people. So, for instance, there was something Rwanda did at a particular time. They called it one laptop per child. So they did it in such a way that every child in Rwanda could be able to access a laptop. So be you a child in the rural area or anywhere in the city, you can access a laptop. So I feel there should be a way of subsidizing these digital gadgets so that those people in the rural areas who earn less can access it. The gist of the matter is that poverty is one of the reasons why digital penetration has not really been going as it ought to in Nigeria. We have about 88.4 million Nigerians living in extreme poverty. And take, for instance, a gadget today. If you want to get a good gadget, be it a laptop, tablet, or a smartphone, you should be having something like 120 to 150,000 minimum. So that's to say there are many people in these rural areas we're talking about. They don't have access, many of them don't earn up to that, even in a month. So it becomes a problem. if the government can find a way of subsidizing these things, making sure it gets to them, the students and even the elderly, those doing their small menial businesses in those areas, if they can gain access to these things, they can improve and they can adopt this technology. Then the third one, as you say, I should mention three. The third one, if they can, government should find a way, putting it up to government this time, should find a way to start educating people in the rural areas. Because I will say one of the reasons also we are lagging behind in this is illiteracy and unawareness. Most people are unaware of what is happening, while some are even afraid of using digital devices. Take for instance, you know that today there are some people that find it difficult to use mobile financial services. They are afraid of it. They believe one day those people will close down and they will lose all their money. So it's something that they need to be educated and told, say, look, it is safe and it is secure and it is more better to use digital services in doing anything you are doing. I believe if they can be educated, we will improve in that aspect.
Well, indeed, yeah, like you've rightly stated, the place of financial literacy cannot be overemphasized. But there's something you said over and over again, that is subsidizing the amount of, or the monies that would be paid, towards acquiring a phone or a laptop and the likes. But then again, I am wondering, how much can the government really do in terms of subsidizing the cost of these things? And that brings us to conversations around, local production of these things. Because like it or not, we have a lot of talent. If you go to markets in Lagos, markets in Onitsha, you see people assembling and producing these things. But then we don't see so much, motivation moving or towards those group of people. But what can we do in the area of, growing our own local production or local assembly of smartphones and gadgets in Nigeria?
Okay, well, I will say that the discussion concerning assembling and manufacturing of smartphones in Nigeria is really long overdue. This is the reason, because the brand that gave birth to Tecno and Infinix was actually a Nigerian. So, and over the years, Transion, which is the company that owns Tecno, Infinix, and Itel, for instance, they have had a huge market share of mobile devices in Nigeria. So, I feel if they can come into assembling of phones in Nigeria, it will be a very good one for them. So, what I'm trying to say is this. If we want to start assembling phones in Nigeria, I'm also thinking like these phone manufacturers, what could be going on in their mind? Most times they consider, well, how is the economic condition of that place? First of all, we need to address our infrastructural deficiencies. We need to address them, because they need to look at all these things before they consider if they can actually start doing something like this in the country. Like you rightly said, there are people already doing it here in Nigeria, but most people cannot patronize those things they are doing because
or don't even have the support that they need.
Yeah, they don't even have the support. So, but if we want it in a way that can actually make it more attractive and we have good gadgets that has good quality, I believe these smartphone companies that has good share in Nigeria smartphone markets should have their own assembling plants here in Nigeria.
But how can we now, have some form of, collaboration between the private sector and government? Because you have, pointed fingers at the government, but I also feel like there should be a middle ground between the government and these private producers. Is there any middle ground at all? And if there is, at what point should they meet?
Okay, I feel presently, I don't know if there is, but I like what the current administration is doing. There has been certain efforts being made to see if we can bring in investors from other parts of the world into Nigeria. But I don't know if specifically there has been efforts concerning smartphone assembling here in Nigeria. So I believe the government can partner with these companies and they can start assembling these smartphones here in Nigeria, because when you assemble it, you reduce the cost of production and you remove import taxes. So I believe the government can partner with these people. But if there's anything like that going on right now, I don't really know. Mm-hmm. But in another way, governments can partner, even if these phones, these gadgets are manufactured outside Nigeria. They can partner with them to reduce the costs. Like a certain governor in Nigeria some time ago said that he partnered with Xerox to import laptops in huge quantity that he shared to students in all his states. So because he was buying in bulk, they reduced the price for him. So literally what the parents could have bought for the child for a certain amount, they got it at a very cheaper price, like about 50% discount. So even if these things are not being assembled in Nigeria, we can still partner with them even when they are outside Nigeria. Some of their importers are here, most of their partners are here also in Nigeria. We can discuss with them and talk about how can we get this in a huge quantity that can serve a particular area, a particular region. By so doing, the price of it can be reduced.
Indeed. You also did mention, that there is, a certain group of people who still do not even have, the knowledge, or do I say digital literacy, towards even accessing, not even access to these gadgets now. Even if you gave them this gadget, it will be hard for them to, use the gadget or even accept the information you're giving to them. So I'd like for us to speak to issues around bridging the gap in digital literacy and opening the minds of people who are, do I say, rigid. Have you had any encounter with those who probably took a long time for them to finally accept? You talked about, making payments, mobile payment and all of those. Have you had any encounters with people who were rigid towards accepting those things, and how were you able to get through to them?
Okay, there was something that happened some time ago. I went to exchange dollar at a Bureau exchange company. So when I was given the account that they have to pay into, I gave an account from a mobile banking company. The driver that took me there was like, why will you do this? Why will you put this kind of amount of money in a mobile bank? So I was like, what do you feel? What's the problem? And he now started telling me, oh, don't you think one day these people will close down, they will run away with your money, stuff like that. Then I started educating them. Say, look, for these people to be able to operate in Nigeria, that means they have been certified. The government is aware of them. If the government is not aware of them, they can't operate. So I started educating him. I told him, feel free to put any amount of money you want to put, and feel free to use these services.
But they must be licensed. Let's put that out there. They must be licensed.
Okay,
obviously.
Yes, definitely there must be license. And many of them that are already operating, they already have their licenses from CBN. We know that, microfinance licenses. So I try to educate him on that, so that it's okay. I mentioned some of them to him. I say, use these ones. I'm very sure they are licensed. And I feel such a literacy program can still go on at any level at all. Like, there was a time, that should be in 2016, Google launched what they call Google Digital Skills for Africa. Now, people like me, that was how I learned digital marketing. I signed up for the classes, I was attending it, and I don't know if the class is still on now. But if we can have things like that, like there was one that is going on, that was launched in October or November, they call that was federal government partnered with Wema Bank, and they did this thing they called the FGN Alerts Skill Innovation, something like that. So if we can have things like that, platforms that teaches people, that gives people digital literacy, improves them, and educates them, I believe you can have platforms like that mostly. People will be able to adopt these things and they'll be more educated. Indeed.
Yeah, there's just so much on the internet, but not many people are aware of the opportunities that exist on the internet.
Yes.
But before we go, because our time is fast spent, you made mention of Rwanda and the things that Rwanda has implemented as a nation to move their country away, towards digital advancement. So what actions would you say Nigeria can, copy? I would use the word copy, not from Rwanda specifically, but from nations within Africa that have, made changes, that have also yielded results in their countries. In a minute, please.
Okay, there was a time Bangladesh launched Bangladesh Digital Innovation. And part of the things they did was they mapped out areas where they have a certain demography of people, because they divided their population into three. They have the ones they call the digital natives, the digital adopters, and they have the outliers. Their target mainly was the outliers, people that don't even care about what's happening on the digital space. So one of the things they did was they built about 5,000 digital centers across the nation of Uganda, mostly in rural areas. So these digital centers gave birth to digital hubs, and their job was to train the people in those localities on digital skills, digital literacy, and how to use the internet generally. So I believe Nigeria, we can still do that. There are many rural areas that don't even understand these digital stories we are talking about. So these places, they need stuff like that. Digital centers should be at least there should be one in every community. Bangladesh, you did it, and it worked for them. That is why even it's reflected even in their GDP, because a local farmer in a community can easily snap his picture and put it on the internet and people will buy it, and they are making money. So I believe that such an initiative can still be carried out in Nigeria, and it will get to everybody across every level.
Indeed, indeed. To bridge the gap, the digital gap that currently exists in Nigeria, there has to be active efforts from government, from the organized private sector, and from you and I towards ensuring that that gap is bridged. Chukwuma Nwokeji, who is a tech content creator and is also an entrepreneur, has spoken insightfully on how Nigeria can bridge the gap for sustainable digital inclusion. Thank you again for your insight on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And this is where we say our goodbyes on this edition of Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. It is the final edition for the week, but Business Daily will be with you again on Monday. But join the conversation on social media and let us hear your thoughts. How have you been able to, in your own little way, bridge the gap in your own environment or vicinity? My name is Chiamaka Inendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.